We are starting another CIRF report on a curious day, the Groundhog Day, and it's 222022. Lots of twos in this day, February 2nd, 2022, and we're going to call this the Great Unraveling, and I'm going to throw in the Aquarian Unraveling because that's part of this Aquarian energy. What does it mean to be unraveling to begin with, but let alone what does it mean to be an Aquarian unraveling? We're going to talk about what that means, and we're going to thread that all the way through the CIRF report. No new moon, there's no full moon, but there's those same pairs up in the sky: Venus, Mars, Mercury, Pluto, and Sun, Saturn. And yes, we still have that Sun, Saturn square Uranus thing, and this little hidden gem, this wise, lucky synchronicity thing with Jupiter just hanging up there amongst all these other big energies, quietly having opportunities that could really explode in a really great way. So let's get a little bit more exact here. Let me show you, especially for you new folks here, is the purple circle represents the astrology, the tropical astrology. And it's always the biggest circle because there's normally all these alignments. There's planets going in different signs. And then we try to find overlaps. So we place the I-Ching reading into the stars. And this week has to do with everything I just mentioned other than the Jupiter. And it's splitting apart. So you have Sun and Saturn square Uranus. This is a very conflicting energy. It's what we've been talking about for over a year, and it's freedom versus compliance. It's government versus eccentric folks, individuals who love their freedom, that kind of thing. Eccentric Uranus. So that's one splitting apart. But then you got Mercury conjunct Pluto. There's like a tumbling of the mind. Basically, Mercury's going through a transformation, and it's a very subconscious thing. So that's brain fog and confusion, hard to talk. And that's a splitting apart. And then you got Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars together is not splitting apart because it's more of a together. And if you remember, Venus just went direct. So let's see, Venus was going in retrograde while Mars is going direct, and then Venus turned direct, and now Mars is catching up with her, and they'll be holding hands for quite some time, a couple months. But together they trine over to Uranus. So like we mentioned last week, these two together, we're holding together only to face this massive change. And so just like, each individual is going to perceive these changes differently. Each individual is going to get the Uranus insights differently. And so we don't know what's going to happen to that holding together, so we got that potentially splitting apart from that as well. And then the green arrow or the green circle is where the Dreambot is. This is interesting. I'll show you the Dreambot here in a second, but kindly help is in there. Well, kindly help is more of a Piscean self-sacrifice, it sounds like, compassionate and all that, and that's where Jupiter is, by the way. But I'm thinking more along the lines of Sun and Saturn together, because Saturn is a should energy and a very hardship kind of a thing. Here, do this, and a taskmaster. And so that together with a weak sun, weakened ego in Aquarius is, and a collective influence is all that, put all that together. That's the Sun and Saturn together, kindly help. But now that Jupiter comes in, Jupiter in Pisces, and I'm going to show you how, quote unquote, it's happening in the Dreambot. And I'll show you what that means if you don't understand what that underlying thing means. All right, we're looking at the week of February 3rd to the 9th, high congruency score as far as how well these are overlapped. The overlap has to do with the Sun and Saturn. And so that goes exact, and that's going to be part of our rave, as we'll talk about later. We triangulate for the influence, which is what this is. And the overall influence is the great unraveling. So it would be as above, so below, both a personal unraveling, but also a collective. And that's the sense of the energy that you might end up feeling this week. And you can see the unraveling happening in the world. And what is unraveling? Well, it's more of an Aquarian feel. So things that held us back is sort of unraveling. And then Aquarian also is disclosure. So things that were kept from us, that the effort to keep things from us is unraveling as well. And then control. That's the other Aquarian thing. Aquarians want freedom, and Uranus wants freedom. And so that slavery system is unraveling. Okay. Everybody ready to get started? Let's do it. All right, so your comments are welcome, especially for the audio. I'm asking for critiques. I did a little bit of tweaking here. So I want comparisons. Does it sound good between the music and my voice? Does my voice need to get higher? Vice versa. And so time now to comment on that if you would, especially if things are bad. And I don't mind criticism. I hope you guys know that already. All right. Shout outs to a lot of folks here. And I don't mean to miss anybody, but just some notables. Mills 1 Oxford. This is over on Rumble. And I highlight this because it's a nice comment, but we're getting traction over on Rumble with 5 rumbles. Those are like up arrows, like YouTube is. But she says trying to spread the love around YouTube and Rumble, and has 2 different sign-ins, obviously, but putting comments down on both just really helps the algorithm on both sides. So huge shout out to Mills 1 at Oxford. Brian Adams says things will never be perfect, so don't wait to start your dream. It's all about the journey. You know how long it took me to figure that out? About 35, 36 years. That it's not all about goals. It's about enjoying the journey, and making this life worth it is in the present moment, not in the future. Aquarians do like to be futurists in general. So I had to bring myself back to the present moment. But 6 up arrows for Brian. That didn't win it. That's pretty cool. All right. Personal takes. I mean, not cool that Brian didn't win. I didn't mean that, but it's cool that 6 isn't going to win now. It needs more, as I'll show you. So I also like how people are doing their own personal takes. Not for me to say is one that bounces between Rumble and YouTube and helps both algorithms, and says, my wife and I are feeling this energy, and goes on to talk about heart rates and blood pressures. And I like this because it helps us to contextualize across multiple different lives, especially as me putting these CIRF reports together. I do want to get your individual takes. And so Selena also puts down her individual experience. And I'm going to read this here because it's actually important for this week. There is an urge to do, but it is small things, details, nothing grand, but little steps in a bigger goal, even if just writing lists or outlining ideas. The energy is not fast yet for me. And that seems to be running true, not just for last week, actually the past few CIRF reports, but especially this week again. Exactly this as far as our solution goes. And so shout out to Selena, not for providing accurate. It's not about that. It's about, I like seeing people's individual experience with these energies, and I don't need it to be exactly like the CIRF. We're all going to get different perceptions of what we're influenced by. I'm just trying to give you the best gauge for what to expect for in terms of energy, and then a suggestion for the best solution. Also, a reply from Sarah says, this seems like where I'm at too. I love the interchange here, the sharing between people and your intuitions and experiences. So thank you for all of you. And then shout outs to Marcella for my birthday wish. Thank you. Eagle Eye, shout out to Here's to Many More. Thank you. And then Selena also says, could you please explain Cazimi and parallel and what they mean? So if that is of use to you, I did reply to that over there. And so if you're interested in those concepts and want to learn more, go back to the other YouTube, last week's YouTube video. And it has to be on YouTube, unfortunately. I didn't do that same comment over on Rumble, but you can just read it there. All right. And then the winner of this week, congratulations, Angie, Cosmic Camel, says, happiest birthday to my dream maker, the surf dude. That's me. Welcome to level 5. I love you and thank you for staying true to the better part of you by sharing the cosmic gift of humanity. You deserve grand praise. And look at this, 9 ups. That was awesome. And it feels good to be seen. And I'm turning red. All right, let's move on. Thank you, Cosmic Camel. Thank you, Angie. All right, Dreambot. Gosh, am I showing red? I'm getting very hot. All right, look, you got to check out this Dreambot. It's nuts. And all right, first of all, look at this surge score of kindly. The word kindly has a surge scale score of 253.1. You know, the last time I saw something above 100, I can't remember when. So kindly is an emphasis in the dreams. That is very telling. Either it's being influenced by day residue, or we're starting to enter towards the Pisces energy, which I, in my opinion, you know, you've got Cancer and Pisces energy. That's this sort of compassion and nurturing, kindly, and, you know, tiptoeing around and stuff. And it could be that, or it could be day residue. I don't know. I don't know what to take of that. I don't know what to make of that. So it says kindly help. And help, it has a pretty high surge score of 60. That's pretty decent. Doesn't compare to 253, but that's really high. So kindly help is, it might be a way you're just saying it nicely, but sort of demanding. And that could be just the Sun-Saturn influence we're going to get into later in the astrology. Or it could be the Jupiter, which is very optimistic and friendly, and in Pisces is self-sacrificing. So could be both. Then we have, let me read linguistic set number 2 for you, and you see what you think of it. February words, vast boy recall. When I saw recall, I thought that matches the unraveling. If people, politicians, leaders, or if they're getting recalled. So anyway, that's what I was thinking of, but that matches, that's why I have an arrow going to the linguistic set. That matches with experiment, took, give, lose, worry, caught, happening, matrix, bite, will. So anyway, to me, I thought that really does sound like it's happening, but with a question mark. You got the word happening, and you've got them worrying. Not us, them. The experiment is over, basically. The experiment is unraveling. That's my take. I think it's pretty solid. I'll let you guys be the determiner of that. Now, if this is predicting something, as the Dreambot is predicting something, that's roughly the bulk of all these predictions come true in about 2 to 6 weeks. So it's not tomorrow, or I know it's happening, according to some, has always been happening.
A new ash advisory has been issued for the Fuego volcano, Washington Center.
Let me change that. Sorry about that. I have a volcano service Wow, I'm not going to quit. Let's just keep moving, all right? All right, back to the astrology. Let's darken this in. We have Mercury this week going direct, and that will mean passing again by Pluto. So getting another, that's on the 11th, it's second pass with Pluto. So another transformation or a direct transformation, more in the present moment. And then we have Sun and Saturn going to a perfect conjunction on the 4th, and this will be the basis for our rave conversion. I'll explain what that is to folks later if you're not knowing. And then remember, this is the Venus and Mars red line here. You can see they go exact on the 16th. That's just 2 days after Valentine's Day. And it's a very Valentine's energy. And as that trines with Uranus, which is not really, it's shown right here. It's at its peak this week. So you have these people feeling together, are magnetized together. It's a very passionate energy, but you're facing big change. And so all bets are off. You're either going to, it's not, the status quo can't be continued with that relationship. It's going to either get a lot tighter, a lot more bonding, or it's going to fall apart and move apart from each other. So it's going to be very dynamic to relationships, especially romantic relationships. So expect that. All right, day to day, Thursday the 3rd. Like I mentioned, you got 3 pairs again. We talked about this last week. You've got Venus and Mars, who are 4 degrees away, with a easy trine over to Uranus, staring change right in the face. Change in the material, change in how we do practical things, change in the practical nature of the relationship, the earthy part, the physical part of the relationship changing. All right. And that's either going to produce more bonding or produce more separation. Mercury and Pluto, like we mentioned, they're just 3 degrees away. So as soon as Mercury goes direct, boom, it doesn't have very far to go for a perfect conjunction. And then this week, big news is the Sun, who is sort of weakened in Aquarius, is going perfect conjunction with Saturn. And that squares over to Uranus. So double pressure in this freedom versus compliance issue that we've been seeing. And okay, so when the Sun is weakened, we have, and I'm trying to read the notes as well as at the same time. Sun is weakened, goes conjunct with Saturn, and Saturn is the compliance guy, but the hardship guy. And look at what we have here. You have ego has to get something done. Ego has to go through a hardship, but it's in Aquarius. And so the net result is it's not just Saturn just gives you a hardship just to laugh at you. It's to hone you, to sharpen your sword, sharpen your tool sets. And so the weak ego gets more toolage, gets more sharpened, gets even sharper. So on the other side of this, your ego in Aquarius is more knowledgeable, more knowing of how you were detained or led to believe or programmed, and all that is opened up even more. So your mind is sharper, your knowledge is sharper. Everything's better on the other side of this for ego. For those who can pull wisdom from the eccentric change of the archetypical partnership. And that is for what I was reading was for actually Jupiter in Pisces. It's the hidden gateway, because you've got 2 sextiles. The attention is on those things that we talked about. And meanwhile, there's opportunities up to the synchronicity and luck and fortune and wisdom and open-mindedness of Jupiter and higher level wisdom. So for those who can pull wisdom from the eccentric change, that's Uranus. See that sextile there? So for those who can pull wisdom from the eccentric change of the archetypical partnership, that's this, then the result is massive amounts of could be fortune. I have a doubt that it's much material, although you're touching two aspects, two of the sextiles to Jupiter, even though Jupiter is in Pisces, is from an earth sign. So it could be fortune, material fortune, but I'm thinking more along the lines of synchronicities, higher level connection to other people, transcendent view, wisdom, to be able to see what's really happening. That sounds like an Aquarian thing, so it matches with this sun on the other side of Saturn, which will eventually happen. So in order to get there, it's the unraveling. See why we're doing the unraveling? So on Friday the 4th, this is when Saturn and Sun, it's early afternoon in Central Time. It goes exact. Mercury goes direct in Capricorn. This is probably going, these are competing energies, and they're big energies, not to mention the squares in here. But when a planet goes station and direct, that's a massive momentum change. When you have a momentum change in one of the planets, that brings a lot of attention to that energy. So this one is Mercury, just happens to be the way you think, your logic, your reasoning, and it might initially, so as this thing is turning around, you say finally, it has this finally feeling, but then, oh crap, you're looking straight in the eyes of the destroyer, and it's the subconscious destroyer, so you're not even really aware that it's happening, and that's Pluto. So the big energy in Saturn and Sun is everything I talked about. It's just that, and they are parallel too. So Saturn and Sun are both in azimuth and elevation, and so they're passing, apparent to us, directly by each other, passing directly over. So we also have this Cazimi thing going on with Saturn, but we're talking about a weak Sun, because he's in Aquarius. So we don't know how much more they're competing with each other, but you do have the should of Saturn. In fact, you've got in a Cazimi, in that eye of the Sun, it's extra strong, so it's extra hard. It's extra, should, and sort of bitter and really demanding, but calm. Saturn doesn't get all the emotional, just really cold and just matter of fact. You just got to do this. And so weak ego says, okay, I guess I have to. And I think that's where that kindly help says, because it is a weak ego. It's not like you can compete with anything at that moment. So on Saturday, get into the weekend, the moon goes over Chiron. Chiron is the old warrior that needs to help others in order to help self. And so it's very emotional in that. And that's an ironic placement for Chiron, because it's in a selfish sign of Aries. It's just, what about me? What's good for me? Your emotions turn sort of selfish. And so remember that change that Venus and Mars had? So the togetherness, and, we can even go into your romantic partnerships, or even your, relationships of any kind, as long as it's the closest relationships that you have, the most passionate, the most attached that you have, are seeing a change. And so now we're adding on a selfish part of this. So two people who are really together, really attached, are facing, like looking down the roller coaster and, gripping each other for this change and potentially excitement or potentially fear of change. And then now we're adding in there one of these or both parties get selfish, or this strong urge to get selfish. So I don't normally talk about moon material, but that's a big one this week. And that's why I highlighted. Everything else is the same. The gateway to Jupiter, if you can obtain it, do it. And you've got the other partnerships. Mercury hadn't really gone anywhere because he was stationed, but he's going direct now. Not really any change on Sunday. Same basic energies, minus the emotions of selfish, or the urge to be extremely selfish emotionally. That is not there on Sunday. On Monday, now we're February 7th. We have now the emotions are with Uranus in Taurus. And so now it gets really interesting, really passionate over here. The energy, the moon energy, the nurturing, the motherhood, the kindly help, I guess, but passion, that's the point. Passion to be Uranus, passion to be on the side of freedom, passion to seek better understanding. We might be emotional about technology for some reason on this day, because Uranus is technology and electricity and stuff. And that's conflicted with a sun who by this point probably is feeling a lot stronger, but still weak under the Aquarian rule. So it's more diffused. It's the ego. It's not like the ego can't do anything. It can do a lot in Aquarius, but it has the grand view of things, sort of diffused from reality a little bit, up in the sky, kind of floating around, up in your head. A lot of mental aptitude, but those are sharper because Mercury is now direct. Take that with a grain of salt as you pass through Pluto, because it's sort of scary. I don't know what's happening, and a transformation again happens particularly in your goals and vision of the future. And then the floodgates of emotions and change, emotional change, floods this closening relationship. Mars and Venus at 2 degrees away from each other, highly passionate now, highly attached to each other, now getting very emotionally charged with freedom, anyway, all the things that Uranus are. Just keep going over those archetypes. Tuesday the 8th, there's a lot of squares, a lot of tension with Sun and Saturn, with still Moon, Uranus, Moon now going over the North Node. So emotions about the future and where you're headed in life and purpose. But, and then Jupiter quietly sits there with its gateway of fortune there, if you want to take it. And then Wednesday the 9th, we have 1 degree away from a perfect transformation or a perfect conjunction with Mercury and Pluto. And we have 2 degrees away, less than that, of Mars and Venus. Those are going exact in 7 days from now. So next Wednesday, these will be exactly together. I would imagine that have something to do with the main energy of next week, although there will also be a full moon as the moon progresses over here, either at the end of next week or the beginning of 2 CIRF reports from now. Well, no, it'll be in either. Yeah, it'll be in the next CIRF report. I'll put it that way. All right, let's take this off and talk about the I-Ching. We threw the coins and they laid out almost a perfect yin, but with one yang line, and that is splitting apart. That's hexagram 23. Things are not the way they seem. Reality appears to be a hall of mirrors. Intrigues are multiplying like summer flies, and there are rumors of discontent. It is the time of illusion, disintegration, distrust, and deception. All of the things that Aquarius knows and reads like a book and unravels. So this is the great Aquarian unraveling, and it may not feel all that good to know all these things that we didn't know before, or know all the deceptions and distrust at an all-time high, and these illusions. Sometimes it's harder to know when the illusion comes to light than it was. It's like being the head in the sand, where a lot of us head in the sand, and then so it's harder to take your head out of the sand to see all the atrocities and deception going on. That's what's happening for a lot of people. Is that the Great Awakening? Yeah, I think it's related. Line 2, the rise of troublesome people and disintegrating forces continues. There is no help on the horizon. When the streets are filled with an angry mob, it behooves you to bolt the door. Stubborn obstinacy in such circumstances could be fatal to your cause. What this line is saying is just realize, you might be ahead of the game in terms of knowing all the deception that was happening, but you're not the only one. There are other people who are pulling their heads out of the sand, and this unraveling, depending on the speed of it, could be really, really, really disruptive. All right. That's what that's saying. Line 3 says, perhaps the time has come to break away from old relationships or situations that exert a negative influence. Remember that change is necessary for growth. This is absolutely essential that it was in the I-Ching reading, because it points to the Mars, Venus, trine Uranus. It's some relationships will get closer, some will maybe disintegrate and start to separate, or separate very quickly. Even though Mars and Venus are together, they're facing that big energy, that big change. And line 5 says the forces of deceptions have undergone a sudden change, yielding to superior force of truth. That is the Aquarian unraveling right there. What is inferior will ultimately weaken, and those who have waited for this outcome will be able to take advantage of the situation when the tide turns. It is time to rally support for your position. What this means is you go from the Uranus side, remember, with wanting the change side of the square to Saturn. We wanted to be free. We wanted to choose our medical outcomes, our medical treatments, etc. But this is saying that don't just lock yourself away like line 2 it seems to imply. It's there's going to be opportunities. And so this is the Jupiter aspect of the line. It's all there. All those alignments are there here in these lines. All right, let's get into the solution. But first, let's take just a short break, and we'll talk about reverse aging technology. Yes, it's real. Yes, I've been trying it for several weeks now, even about 2 months. I haven't tried all these patches yet, but the ones that I highly recommend that you consider are the X39. This does it all. This is like the multivitamin. What is this technology? It's a patch that you wear to activate certain stem cells. And these are copper peptides known to enhance specific cell activity. So the X39 sort of does a broad brush. You can get by with some really nice, so just added some one person this morning who is really experiencing the benefits of the X39, and that's all they were using. And so energy better, even starting to notice some differences in the youthfulness of the face. But what I want to recommend too is the Silent Night one, and that's down here in the corner. But if you're having problems sleeping, that's going to be your number one way for rejuvenating, feeling younger, having better energy, better immune function. and even everything better, social engagement, etc. Silent Night is a patch that you wear just before bed, and you wear it throughout the night, so you don't get that groggy feeling, but you get better night's sleep. And I've got the data for myself that this thing really does work. If you're interested in any of this, get a hold of me at interzention@gmail.com, and I look forward to consulting with you. All right, here's the solution. Gentle penetration. When we make those changes, when using a force that is soft but persistent, careful aim is necessary, for only when a small force continually moves in the same direction will it have a cumulative effect. In human affairs, this kind of soft influence comes more through strength of character than by direct confrontation or active seduction. It's important to have and stick to clearly defined goals, maintaining a strong vision, and following a steady course of least resistance will bring good fortune. All right, and then we put into the rave our Sun and Saturn, and we get hexagram 13. We'll talk about that in the rave mandala. That's the human design mandala, and it's the I-Ching part of the human design. And then we have Sidereal Capricorn. This is going out into the night sky, and you can see, well, you wouldn't be able to see, if you were able to look into the sun, you'd be able to see that it's actually in Capricorn, Sidereal Capricorn. So sidereal is when you go out to the night sky and look up, and whatever you see, that's sidereal, because these zodiac signs and systems have shifted over the few thousands of years. And we use this as the influence, tropical, and we use sidereal as the solution. All right. Go through the explanation. You go look at the introductory video if that is confusing. But we use both tropical and sidereal. So we need sidereal Capricorn. And that works really well. You can already see with this clearly defined goals, sticking to it, soft influence, just keep on going, persistence. That's Capricorn. So it's a perfect match. Hexagram 13 says the fellowship of man, universal ideas and values in an ordered framework which inspires human cooperation. What was the top word in the Dreambot? Kindly help. So there is, in this unraveling, there is a component of togetherness, fellowship, and help and cooperation. I find that interesting. But line 3 says pessimism, and I think this is highly likely, the belief that what is best can never be achieved. This is a feeling that you might see as the unraveling begins, and what's already happened with Zucker and CNN stepping down amid some ethical issues. And we've got accusations going down through the threads of several of the people there. It's not a surprise to most of us, but as this unraveling happens, it's this belief, or possible, you might feel this sense of it's never going to pan out, or it's not going to be achieved, or whatever. A lack of trust that can only be transformed through concrete evidence. Openness that is conditioned by suspicion and seeks evidence. So the other side of this coin is pessimism is exalted as an art form, and where the rightness of suspicion can inspire satire. In other words, we get sarcastic. The rave is telling you, do not succumb to the sarcasm, to the cynicism. That is toxic. Pessimism as an art form, and so we just start getting, cynical. That is a disaster. What you want to do is take a lack of trust. If you feel this belief that it's never going to be achieved, use that to get more concrete evidence. And from there, that will instruct you on your next thing to do. All right, we're ready for the summary slide. Here we go. So as the great unraveling, Remember, this is February. Oh, let me change. There we go. There, hopefully you can see more of the slide. So we have February 3rd through 9. It's I put dollars in here, but there's a financial component to this that I haven't discussed, but the great unraveling. Right? And it's not like it's still a process, and it's not like it's starting. It's already been starting, the unraveling, and we know that. But this is a turning point. This is an accelerating point, sort of like the peak or the top of the roller coaster, and it's about to really get fast. But for some of us, because it's an Aquarian unraveling, it might have this sensation of freeing effect, like I can finally be myself. Knowing the ways that we were being controlled and swindled and deceived is just as important as the actual systems unravel as we continue to proceed to the Aquarian age. So the I-Ching 23 as an influence goes like this. The humbled ego, that's the sun, passes Yoda for a lesson in reality. That's Saturn, because that's what Saturn does. It's been a house of mirrors. Illusions come to light but are painful. Time to find like minds. Truth is changing people and their behaviors. Streets are filled with angry mobs. It's not the world I grew up in. That's the influence according to the I-Ching 23. And the ego passing Yoda for a lesson in reality is the Sun and Saturn conjunction. All right, so we have gentle penetration for the I-Ching solution. This is the solution slide, and we're going to triangulate here. So the I-Ching says use softness, repetition, use precision and timing and cohesiveness, and patience is a big one. The rave said the belief that the best is unattainable, the need for evidence to shake suspicion, don't let pessimism be exalted as an art form. And then we have Capricorn, who can tend to get a little bit doubtful. Capricorn has this fear of doubt, and so you do risk falling into cynicism. Just watch out for that. That's your indicator that you're not using your best Capricorn energy. So here we go. The solution triangulation seems pretty straightforward. Capricorn and I-Ching both suggest clear, practical goals, good planning, persistence, soft action, and patience while you wait for the effects to begin appearing. There's your patience. The rave highlights the slow nature of this week's effort. There might be feelings of futility or a growing belief that desired outcomes are impossible. Pessimism arises as a result, and you can either choose to investigate for harder evidence or resort to sarcasm. The latter is hazardous. The latter is hazardous and induces harder forms of suffering. Basically, create your personal goals for this week right now before the week starts and begin soft, repeating actions towards that goal. Watch out for self-doubt, that's Capricorn, and pessimism, that's the rave. Keep trusting your repeated actions and don't give up. Also, best to find like minds and people with the same goals. So if you want to, I have a phrase that you can either change a little bit for yourself, but to remember the mantra for yourself this week, or the recommended mantra, could sound like this. I continue to persevere until my soul work is complete. So there's a lot of components in there. We want to first, don't give up, keep going, small but methodical, not big steps. Don't take big bites out this week. What we want is persevere, but we also want to persevere towards your highest purpose. And that's the magic of Capricorn. You need a goal, or wants a goal, because it's ambitious and responsible. But do you want to just do ego? Because ego's weak this week. So we probably want to do something deeper, some deeper soul work, And that's out in the material world, which is where Capricorn likes to be because it's an earth sign. So I continue to persevere until my soul work is complete. Or you can say your soul goal or your goals are complete. But don't give up. Don't fall into pessimism. Don't fall into cynicism and sarcasm. And don't exalt. Pessimism is an art form. I like that term. Whew. All right. Well, I think that's it, folks. Get a hold of me if you're really interested in this technology. Its spaces are filling up. There's always going to be room for you, so it's not a time issue, but you want to get this technology started so you can get your stem cell activity going. It takes time to develop, but there is extra energy for you. There is an improvement, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the help that this product is going to do for a lot of people. It's an international phenomenon right now. All right, everybody, you take care of yourselves, and hopefully we'll just start seeing some massive unraveling happening in this next week. We'll give it this week to another 6 weeks. I bet when you look back at this time in 6 weeks from now, I bet you say that it has accelerated tremendously, especially with the things happening with the truckers, the supply chain, the awakening that's happening with medical stuff. So it's all on us. We can do this, and we all do our thing little by little, and it's a massive force. All right, take care. We will see you in another CIRF report next week. Love and light.